Hi everyone, Michael Lunt here from the Fearless Entrepreneur Podcast. In this week's episode, we will be discussing how to effectively network and be a good representative for your business. So let's get to it. Tell me the scariest thing that's ever happened to you at a networking event.
Trying to remember my pitch in front of a bunch of what I thought were potential clients. Terrifying, and forgot things, repeated myself, focused so on what I was doing that, that was just absolutely terrifying. Horrible.
And let me guess as well, you actually practiced it over and over and over and over, and no matter how many times you practiced it, you still somehow fell flat. And I've done that so many times. It's I don't understand what happens. It's like your brain just decides to kick you up the arse and go, sorry, not today.
It's, and of course you learn a lot from that. We'll get into that. But yes, that in all of networking, that was the biggest thing. And that was very stressful. Matt, what about you?
Oh, I don't know. Walking into a networking room and realizing you forgot your business cards is a no-no. Trying to think of something not so much a horror story, but something I fear. I fear going to a networking event and then having it be a total mismatch for my target demographic. Like you go there, and if they're not aligned with the business size you deal with, or in the same gene pool of clients you're hoping to obtain, that can be a nightmare, where you realize you're going to give away 2 hours of your life, and you're kind of you're pot committed, as they say in Texas Hold'em, and you really can't pull the ripcord for a host of reasons. But that's my nightmare.
Well, everyone, welcome to episode 3 of the Fearless Entrepreneur Podcast. This week, if you haven't guessed already, we are talking about networking. When to do it, where to do it, and how to do it well. I'm your host, Michael Lunt, and with me is Matt Adams and Matthew Byrne. We are 3 business owners based in Dublin, Ohio, with a wide range of business experience as well as different ventures in business as well. Guys, business networking is really important. I'm curious to understand both of your approaches to networking. Matt, what type of networking do you like to do?
None at all. No, I'm kidding. At least initially. I think for me, the type of networking that I enjoy is when I approach the networking event, and it doesn't really matter what kind of event it is. The moment that I started thinking less about what I have to sell, what my company has to offer, and more about just listening to the different people in the room, asking a lot of questions of people, being inclusive to the folks in the room and bringing them all into the conversation, really allowed for me to start learning more about their businesses. And then I was able to start connecting them with other people that I know, and that that can help them, that can either help their business or it's a resource I can point them to. And now I become sort of a trusted advisor, if you will, or a friend. And I'm having these, we're actually making a connection that makes it easier versus me trying to always remember, well, what's your pitch? What are you going to sell them? Is this guy going to be perfectly aligned for my business for what I'm trying to sell that day? And I guess I kind of look at it as you're farming and you're not hunting. You're going out there. You're just trying to sprinkle the seeds, water the crops, as it were, and then eventually these leads will come back to you. These connections will come back. So as far as the type of events go, I'm not one for like, hey, we're going to bring a stack of business cards and let's all give each other referrals. I'm not a big fan of that. I respect my clients. I respect my contacts, and I don't want to just give them to somebody who happens to be signed up in the group necessarily, unless I know them well and I know the quality of work that they do. So not that I hate it, but it's just not the type of networking I enjoy doing.
That's interesting that you say that, because I know that both Matthew and I have been involved in referral groups, which you alluded to just then. So I'm actually interested to see what Matt's answer is to that. So Go ahead, Matt. Let's hear what your approach is.
Well, I think first and foremost, and Matt Adams kind of touched on it, is it's really about getting to know people, getting to like people and trust people. You'll hear that a lot in the networking world, but and it's about going in with the mind of making an investment in yourself and in each other. You never go there with the intent to get business or immediately get a big win. You go there with the intent of trying to learn from each other and provide value. That's a pretty important thing. And one, if you're nervous about your 30-second commercial or nervous about networking in general, one great tip I read from a book called Endless Referrals by Bob Berg. We'll put it in the show notes, but great book. And it's a very, detailed, methodical journey about networking and how to do it correctly. But one thing he says is that, your goal is not to sell the people in your networking group or at the networking event. Your goal is to create friends and relationships to the point where they might unlock the 250 people in their sphere of influence and refer you people who might do business with you. So don't feel a compulsion at the networking event to get business from people or necessarily to give it. You're just trying to get to know people and see if you can get to the point where the 250 people that would come to your funeral or to your wedding, that's your sphere of influence, according to Bob Berg. And if I can unlock your trust to introduce me to those people in the right situations, then we've achieved our goal of networking.
Yeah, from my experience, I mean, I talked about this in the previous episode about how when I started my business, it was all about joining the nearest chamber of commerce. So that was kind of my first introduction into networking. And I have to say that from that standpoint, it actually taught me what networking actually was and what wasn't happening at those meetings, if that makes any sense to anyone. You would go to these groups and you would see all these like-minded people in these little bubbles, and it was very hard to get into. And I'm a relatively nervous person anyway, as it is when it comes to networking. I love talking to people, but that first kickoff meeting is very daunting to me, especially if it's a cold call related thing. So with networking, I found that the best thing I could do was actually be the first person to show up to a meeting. And the reason why is because then everyone is coming to me rather than me trying to break into a conversation with someone who's already maybe engaged with somebody else. So I would give that bit of advice to anyone who is terrified of networking is show up early, be the first person in the room so that people approach you. Now people are trying to break into your circle rather than you trying to break into theirs.
That's a great piece of advice. And, one of the things you need to realize is that everybody who shows up to a networking event comes for the exact same reason, to network. I don't care if they're the CEO of a company or somebody who's, the director of the networking event. It doesn't matter. That person is there to network and meet people, and you shouldn't feel shy about going up and talking to them.
That type of networking group actually didn't really work well for me. And so I actually moved over, as I talked about earlier, into the referral side of things, where I go to the same networking group every single week. And because of that, I'm able to get to know people a little bit more in the room. And so it becomes a lot more comfortable. Now I can stand up, I can say my 30-second speech in front of the same group of people, and I can then go to these other groups within my networking organization, and I know my pitch, I know what I'm going to say, and I'm not worried about talking in front of people. And it actually helped break me into the networking, quote unquote, industry, if you like, in terms of getting comfortable with telling people who I am and what I do. So that was kind of how it worked for me.
And I think, a lot of people, everyone wants to talk, right? I mean, no one wants to talk, but then once they get them going, everyone wants to tell you what they have to offer. Let them talk, because they're not listening to you anyway. And
very true. Yeah.
So don't worry about that. Quit. My wife was an attorney, and they taught them in law school early on that the person who's asking the questions is in control, and quickly turn it around to them. I mean, you're inevitably going to get asked that question. So what do you do? I'm a digital marketing specialist, and I'm a graphic designer, or this is briefly what I do. I'm a digital marketing and design specialist. What do you do? And then let them tell them. And then find something that you can connect with them on. Keep asking them the questions. And then the other thing is you've made a little connection there, and play those mnemonic games. Get that name stuck in your head, because we're all horrible with names. There's a select few that aren't. But as you're standing there and you're talking with this person, know that everyone else in the room is probably as nervous as you are.
Yeah.
That stand with your body in an open type and be inviting. I mean, we've all walked up on a conversation at one of these things where there's these two people that either know each other or whatever, and they're just squared off, looking at each other, talking face to face, and you're awkwardly waiting to chime in, right? For that.
Yeah.
Don't be that person. Stand with your body a little bit open. Invite them in. Introduce them to the person you're talking to.
Yeah. They also say as well, don't they? Like the psychology of people is if someone spends, I don't know, a 5-10 minute conversation with you talking pretty much exclusively about themselves and what they do, they recall that conversation as a really good conversation they had with you, despite the fact that you may never have opened your mouth.
Right.
And it's something that they play about, like, I was in a positive light. I was really enjoying talking about my business. So I know I enjoyed the conversation. I'm going to give that guy a call. And so it kind of goes back to what you were saying there about, let them talk. Be a good listener. Don't be a motor mouth, as my parents would say.
Yeah. And I'll add that, getting some good questions that will help pry that information out of your networking partners is a good idea. They came to share their story, and the more you can let them do that and having good questions, how did you get into the business? How long have you been in the industry? What are some of the challenges you face? This gets them talking, and they have a really great experience with people who ask good questions and do a lot of good listening. Don't feel the compulsion to spam them with everything you've ever done professionally and how great your opportunity is. Resist that urge, ask good questions, and it'll pay off.
Yeah, and I think, let me add to that, in that if you can get yourself to the point where you're not really talking so much specifically about your own business, that's wonderful. And what I mean by that is create all of your social profiles. And let's face it, social media is a huge part of networking. Make sure in your bios on your LinkedIn account or your Facebook account, if you're using that, you talk a little bit about what your business and the service that you provide. That way, when they go to look you up or you've made that connection, they can see that there and they're reminded, but they don't remember that necessarily. They remember, Mike was from the UK. He was so cool. What an awesome accent, blah, blah, blah. You've got that great little moniker for you. That's a great conversation starter for you.
Took me a long time as well to realize that was the case. People used to say to me, push the accent, Mike, like tell people where you're from and let them remember you. And I'm like, okay, I guess I can do that. How do I do that? But it turns out I don't really have to do anything. I just talk. And
the same thing in networking. I mentioned just a moment ago about being online and using social media. When people are on social media, every person, I don't care who they are, when they post something, they want a response. They want a thumbs up. They want a comment. They want something. Give them that.
Yeah.
The real connection starts occurring in the comments.
Yeah.
Hey, thumbs up. Hey, congratulations on this, and mean it. People are going to pick up on how superficial you are right away if you truly don't mean it. And if you want to make a connection and you're going to grow your business through networking, you need to have meaningful one-on-one connections. All good marketing is nothing more than a vehicle to get a good one-on-one connection.
Yeah, that's very true, Matt. I had this mentor speaker that he had the term the critical yard. The critical yard is the 3 feet between you and me. So all of your LinkedIn and all of your email blasts and all this digital marketing is really with the end goal of getting a face-to-face connection with somebody. You remember that movie City Slickers?
Yeah.
Yes.
What is it? The one thing, right? The one thing. Remember that line? Talking about the one thing. Anyway, I'll put the clip in the show notes. But the reason why I bring that up is that something that frustrates me at networking events is when somebody it claims to be doing 2 things. My theory is if your business is, if you're doing, cosmetics and you have a software development company, you're probably not doing either very well. If you've got some corporate job and you're also starting your own business doing car detailing, you're probably not necessarily somebody who's far enough down the field from an entrepreneur standpoint for me to trust. So I kind of
So what you're saying is those people that give you the double-sided business card where it's got one thing on one side and something completely different on the flip side, and you're like, well, which one are we today?
Right. So in that, it's pretty natural for somebody who's starting their own business. There's a lot of different ways, and if our first episode talks about those different mechanisms for financing, be it spousal financed or severance financed or bank financed or angel investor financed, but it's okay to need to hold down your day job as you start to pursue the dream of being an entrepreneur. Don't bring the duality to the networking event.
I agree. Oh, the other thing I would say as well is bring your best version of yourself. And that really goes down to a marketing standpoint as well. Like every time you hand a business card to someone at a networking event, you're making an impression. I remember vividly the guy handed me a business card that he printed at home. Now, you can absolutely print business cards at home if you want to. I don't personally recommend it. I think there are plenty of affordable services out there online that you can use. And you don't even need to necessarily pay a company to create a card for you. You can use a stock one.
Yes, you do.
This guy handed me, well, yeah, I would recommend you do that. But what I'm saying is, if you're entry level and you don't have the funds to be able to do that, there are affordable ways to do it.
Absolutely.
So this guy hands me a home printed business card and he printed it on a piece of standard letter paper. So this thing was like a wet noodle. It had zero structure to it, and it spoke volumes about his business to me that he clearly didn't value it enough to put a little bit of effort in. And that kind of segues onto my second point about business cards is do not, under any circumstances, just go around in a networking event, whether it is a chamber event, a referral group, whatever it might be, and just start handing business cards out to absolutely everyone. Because one, how can you possibly be spending enough time with any single one person in that room if you are doing that? But also, you are basically throwing shit against the wall and seeing what sticks. And that to me is not a good way to do it. I like to get people when I talk to people about business card like handling and things like that, I like to tell them, think about your business card. Think about how much that costs. My business cards I get from a more premium vendor online. So each business card costs me about $1 to make. So I like to think that would I hand a $1 bill to this person in exchange for a phone call? Like that dollar is going to be used for time spent writing me an email or time spending on the phone to me. Will this person actually give me a call? And if they're not going to, and I genuinely don't believe that, why am I handing them a business card? What would be the point? So start thinking about each time you hand a business card, you are handing money to another person, and ask yourself, would you really want to give this person $1? And if the answer is no, don't do it.
Yeah, that's great advice. I put in the show notes something about giftology. I saw a lecture. He talked about the $1 business card, and he goes out of his way. It's going to leave an impression. You're going to walk away with that Mike Luntz $1 business card or the giftology guy's $1 business card, and it's going to leave an impression. The other thing is a mistake a lot of people make is don't hang out with the people that you go to the networking event. Okay. If you go with 3 friends at a networking event, don't pair off in the corner and just sit there and talk to each other. Don't sit next to each other either. If it's around a table, make sure that you spread out and meet new people. Like we said earlier, everybody's there to meet each other and to learn about each other. So
But can you give a bit of advice on that? Like, because I know when I've gone to networking groups in the past, before I was part of my referral group, that's exactly what I would do. I would go to a networking event with a friend, and we would stand in the corner. We would eat the free food. We would drink the drinks, and we would hope that someone was going to gravitate over towards us. How do you break that cycle? Is there a technique that you would recommend to kind of just break apart rather than having a fight in the car on the way over?
Yeah, there's a couple things. One is, you mentioned the food line or the bathroom line. Don't be creepy. But what you can do is, the food line is a great way to socialize and congregate with people, right? So that's a good way to start up a conversation, or just, hey, tell me about what you do. And if you get into firing off a bunch of good questions, it's super easy because you don't have to do your pitch. You don't have to worry about that. You have to ask good questions. And then the other really easy technique is, introducing them to somebody else. Hey, Matt Adams does graphic design and, marketing strategy. I want to introduce you. You guys might be good partners. Or, Mike Lunt has a, video production empire. I want to introduce you to, because I think you might be able to connect. That's a really easy way where you don't have to be the center of attention, right? When you're asking questions, they're the center of attention. When you're introducing somebody, the person you're introducing them to is the center of attention. So it's a really easy, low pressure way to kind of mingle and connect with people.
Yeah. And you mentioned, Mike, about you're standing over off in the corner. There are going to be those people at that event. So if you can rip the Band-Aid off and be the person that goes and initiates conversation, you're probably going to have a little buddy there for a while, right? And that's why you need to, you want to, because you can start talking to people, but then how do you get away? That's the other aspect. How do you get away from somebody who are monopolizing your time? And that's why I talked a little bit about having your position, you're opening up and you're trying to pull people into the conversation. Hey, have you met Matt? This is Matt Byrne. Matt, this is my friend Mike Lunt here. And we just met. You know how it goes. Yeah. And then when I step away, I don't step completely away. I just sort of increase the circle, if you will. Right. So I can engage with somebody else. And back on the business card thing, I wanted to jump in and say that the way I approach business cards, and as a designer, I love print design. I love, there's so much you can capture of the brand in a business card. But how I use them is I will give a business card to a person that I haven't had the chance to connect with. And maybe we're walking out of the room and I'll say to them, hey, I'm really sorry. I would love to get a chance to talk with you again. Here's my card. Yeah, maybe we could set up a time to talk a little bit more. The person that I've been meeting with, when that conversation ends or we're nearing the conclusion or I'm trying to maybe move on, I'm going to say to them, hey, this is great talking with you. Would you mind if we connected on social media? Through LinkedIn or Facebook if you use it. And I'm making that connection that way. Yeah. That's how I use the business card.
You just actually reminded me of something. And it's a cultural thing more than anything. Get into the habit, guys, of when you receive a business card from someone, if you need to make notes about that person that you just met with, snap a picture in your phone and add the notes in your phone. Do not take out a pen and start writing on their business card. And the reason why I say that is because in some cultures, that is the height of bad manners. So if you are dealing with a customer who really values their property and they're passing that on to you, you could seriously offend them. And that, might sound a little silly and a little bit over the top, but it's just how the world works. Not everyone is okay with you writing on their business card. I know personally, I spent a lot of time on my business card and I spent a lot of money getting them made. I would really hate to find out that someone's doodling all over them. I would prefer it that they were, keeping it not necessarily on their person, but keeping it in a drawer somewhere where it's flat and they've got all the notes they need about me somewhere else. So just keep that in mind. Like, if you absolutely feel that you have to write on that card, do it out of their presence. Like, go away, write on it later. But in the meantime, snap a picture, put your notes in your phone. It's so much better.
If you've made a connection with them, you're going to remember those things about them. When you get back in the car or you leave the event, you can write those notes down. Somebody did turn me on to an app, and we'll put the link in the show notes as well, called Haystack, Haystack. Nice little app that you can build your own virtual business card, but then you can hold their business card in front of the camera. It'll take a shot, and it will store all that information, their email address, phone number. And then if you've got a CRM tool, a client relationship management tool, you can import that information into it and put them into your sales process.
Mine's I use HubSpot, and mine actually I can snap a picture of a business card and it takes all that information and just puts it into the lines for me. I don't even need to retype it up or anything like that. It's great.
We've been talking a little bit about the different types of networking group, and one that is often overlooked, but it's the informal network. It's the you're at church or your kid's school activities, those sorts of things. Those are networking events as well. And you wouldn't dream of trying to sell people right then. I mean, some do, but you're talking with your, the parents of a child who's, in the same class as your child. You don't want to start hitting them with what you're selling. Use these opportunities to practice listening and making those connections. So it's not always a chamber event or, a meetup. There's always opportunities. And I encourage anyone to get out there and just start practicing, just show up, just go and listen.
Yeah. One grave mistake a lot of people make is not only they try to sell at the event, we've kind of talked about, don't do that. But also they put you on their spam list immediately upon getting back to their office. That's the biggest turnoff. Happens on LinkedIn to me all the time. It happens in networking events. I hand somebody my card in good faith thinking, let's get to know each other. Let's grab coffee. And then, I get an email every 3 days for the next month about their product or service. If you want to write me a custom email specific to me, I'm happy to read it. But if you want to put me on a list, that's kind of a no-no. We haven't talked about it. We've glanced at it. The social media aspect. Matt Adams talked about informal networking events. Well, social media is also a great place to network. As we said, the critical yard, with the goal of getting to know these people, getting to trust them, and getting, a relationship brewing. But, I post a lot of information on my social media. I know Matt Adams has a whole business that's been built on helping people leverage their social media presence to gain leads and generate business. But I think it's really important. You're not necessarily trying to sell them. You got to provide, I read a stat, you got to do 9 points of value before you do 1 point of ask. So provide content, value, and then say, hey, I'm having a sale, or, let's meet for coffee to talk about, I do employee benefits. So that would be something I might ask you for after I've sufficiently earned your attention through providing value. So it's always, I know there's a cliche networking. It's, givers get, reciprocal referrals. It's really talking about going in the mindset of trying to give, and you'd be amazed at the exponential things you'll receive if you do that.
Oh yeah, I can absolutely attest to that as well with my referral network. If you expect to join one of these groups and pay the dues and just expect people to give you referrals, it's just not going to happen. And I'm going to, destroy that expectation right now for you, because it is absolutely based on what you give is what you receive. It took me probably close to 18 months to actually get referrals from the group I'm in. But in that time period, I was giving referrals. And it's also, we said it before, it's that know, like, and trust mentality. If they don't know you, like you, or trust you, chances are they're not going to give you a referral, because every time they refer someone to your business, they're putting their neck out for you, and they need to make sure they can trust you. So when you join these groups, make sure that you're expecting the right thing, and that is that you are going to have to give before you get.
I think one of the key takeaways about lessons in networking that we've learned today, and that, if I were, in case of emergency, break glass, I'd want these 3 items to be on the list. I'd say make sure that you're networking with the right people that actually fit what you're trying to accomplish, that you go in with the mind of a giver, trying to help before you try to receive, and that you ask really good questions. I think you'll find that so disarming and so easy, and all the anxiety you may have about networking will melt away if you just ask a bunch of good questions.
You nailed it. I mean, that's it. I mean, if you can follow Matt Burns' 3 points there, that's exactly it. One, I can add on to that, get there early. I like to say stand near the entrance, to the right of the entrance on the inside. That way people may even think you're part of the event or hosting the event. You can start having those conversations. Mm-hmm. And you should be one of the last to leave, because you're going to make those great connections once the room has warmed up. So get there early, be the last to leave.
Yeah, the big thing for me, your business card speaks volumes about who you are and how seriously you take your business. Don't just hand it out to everyone, and make sure that it is well presented. And I absolutely love what you said as well, like make yourself almost look like you're part of the event that you're attending so that people feel comfortable coming up to you and talking about their company with you. And you can really just pull that information out. I really loved earlier what you said about just letting people talk, and I think that's really important. So that's absolutely on point. So guys, remember that this podcast is available on Apple, Google Play in the US, and Spotify, and we're also now available on iHeartRadio. We received our email about that a few weeks ago, so we're excited about that. But we're also available wherever else you might get your podcasts. But we encourage you to subscribe so you can hear the latest episodes as they are released. And don't forget to give us a review. A big 5-star would be really helpful so that we can reach other entrepreneurs just like you.
If you have a topic you'd like to discuss, post a comment below or on our Facebook page. Also, social media wise, don't forget you can follow us on Facebook at the Fearless Entrepreneur Podcast. And you can also read more about us on our website, thefearlessentrepreneur.podcast.com.
That's all from us this week. So until next time, stay fearless.